Hi gang, we just launched 7 new shows at revision3beta.com covering everything from hacking to music lessons, drinking to future sex. 7 shows, so check out revision3beta.com today. Future sex?
This episode of Techzilla is sponsored by Domain.com. Got a great idea? It all starts with a great domain, Bex, different by choice, and the United States Air Force. Coming up on today's show, iPhone apps you need to try, the best Vista tool ever, and copious amounts of your viewer questions. So kick off your shoes, loosen your belt, and let it all hang loose, because Techzilla starts now.
Welcome to Techzilla. I'm Patrick Norton.
And I am Veronica Belmont.
The one and only.
The one and only. As far as I know, actually, I think there's another. There might be 2. I did that How Many of Me site. I think that's what it's called. This is the international symbol for typing on a keyboard.
I translated it as such.
And I think there's 2. There might be 2. I think one's in Mexico and one's in like Washington State.
Yeah, there's like 500,000 of me in San Francisco alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
What about it be Veronica
Really?
Belmonte?
Belmonte. Anyhow, Boing Boing, by the way, has a very interesting story today.
This actually is it kind of sucks if you've bought digital music through Walmart.
Yeah, they're closing down their DRM servers, which at first I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome.
No. They're not getting rid of DRM. They're basically saying we are leaving the online music sales business. We're shutting down our servers. Thanks, it's been great.
Right, so then anyone who's purchased songs on Walmart that have the DRM, they're encouraging you to burn it to an audio CD and then re-rip it if you want to listen to it digitally, which kind of puts you in an iffy spot because it can degrade the audio quality.
Yeah, it's basically like, it's called the analog loophole, right? Because you have to be able to listen to the music, therefore you can record the music. But basically you have to do this because if you lose your machine, if you reinstall Windows on your machine, you're no longer going to be able to verify that you have the rights to play those DRM encrypted files, which is reason 347 that digital rights management generally sucks.
Precisely.
And it's actually, it's amazing, right? Because Walmart's, well, according to the last numbers we saw, which came from an Ars Technica leak from Apple.
From a long time ago,
from like back in April, that Apple was the #1 music retailer in the United States through the iTunes store, followed by Walmart with a combination of basically in-store CD sales and online sales.
Right.
Followed by Best Buy. I think like Rhapsody was like number, I don't know, 12.
Yeah, Walmart was by far the biggest music retailer for a very long time,
like
especially in
30,
terms of brick and mortar
30%.
too. I mean, that's why it's such a big deal that if an artist can't sell their CD in Walmart for some reason, like if they find it too offensive, it's a huge deal for them. They're going to lose a lot of sales because so many people buy CDs from Walmart.
And it's the numbers come from, what is it, NPD USA? Is that the one? Yeah, NPD Music Watch survey. And yeah, basically traditionally, up until a couple of years ago, 1 in every 4 CDs was sold through a Walmart. Now it's like less than 1 in every 5 or 6, according to these numbers.
Well, that's why I buy mostly on eMusic. You don't have to worry about all the DRM jazz with that. You know, you just get your audio files and you can listen to them however you want to.
Yeah, or that's why I own, like 1,800 CDs. Hopefully Apple never goes down, so iTunes never falls into this situation, because I'd have to fair play hack all of my Dr. Horrible episodes.
Wouldn't that be awful?
That would suck.
I mean, I do have a fair number of stuff that I've bought on the iTunes store, just because sometimes you can't get everything on eMusic, and you can get most stuff on Apple, on iTunes. So if that happens, well, you can strip the DRM. There are ways, but it's kind of a pain in the tuchus.
Hopefully there would, well, I'm sure actually contractual obligations would prevent Apple or Walmart from offering a way to unlock those files.
True. Anyhow, we have other work to be getting to these days. We've got your questions for you people watching the show out there. And this first cry for aid comes from Dave out in Oklahoma. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. Anyhow, how do you decide which in-ear headphones are the best? It's not like you can audition them like you can with over-ear headphones. I've tried several sets of earphones, and at first they're all right, but after a while certain problems keep showing up. Dave in Oklahoma.
All right, Dave gets mad props because there was a very long email attached to this, and basically he has a few acres of lawn, he wears them, and he realizes some of them are uncomfortable, some of them just like the sound, and in-ear headphones are really, really tough. Outside of trade shows, or say if you have a friend that has umpteen pair, it's really hard to be able to demo them. And people's reactions vary a lot, basically depending on the size of their ear canal. If they have like surfer's ear like I do, so that one ear canal is smaller than the other, it's problematic. And some folks just don't like them. I hate over-the-ear, sound. Sound canceling headphones, to me, they sound like my head's about to collapse.
Really?
Yeah.
You get sucked into that vacuum feeling,
Do you ever walk into an anechoic chamber and it's that sensation where there's no sound and it feels wrong? Anechoic. One of them silent rooms with the foam where they test audio equipment.
Oh, I've been in a I've had my ears tested before, so it was probably like that.
Did you walk into a room and there was like no noise
sound,
in there, and it felt really uncomfortable?
Yeah.
That's how I feel when I put on noise canceling headphones.
Interesting. That is interesting.
A lot of people I know who love those can't stand. They feel like in-ear headphones, like my Etymotic ER4s, they feel like they're tickling their brainstem because they stick so far into your skull.
It's so funny because I wear in-ear headphones. I wear the Ultimate Ears, as I've said numerous times. I've worn them actually to the breaking point, as I showed you earlier. The little thing's starting to snap off, but I've had them forever though. But my IFB that Roger talks into my head with, it drives me freaking insane. And I can totally see why some pairs might do that same feeling, but for some reason the Ultimate Ears don't do that to me.
Yeah, a lot of it depends. Like for Etymotics, for example, they usually have a foam plug, a collapsible plug, a silicone plug, and they offer all those in multiple sizes. What you can try to do, right, you can try to buy from a site that'll let you return them is a really good way to do that. Or a store that'll let you return the headphones if you don't like them.
Yeah, just make sure you don't get all your gook in there first.
You had some problems with restocking fees recently, though.
I feel bad saying this because we've pimped Newegg so many times.
Newegg
I feel like really guilty about
me many times.
I was very angry. I mean, I couldn't believe I bought that KVM switcher that I was talking about on the show. And a lot of people gave me a hard time about complaining about it. They were like, "Oh, you had to pay a restocking fee, big freaking deal." I'm like, well, not only did I have to pay a restocking fee, which was $10, which isn't cheap, I mean, I had to pay my own shipping back, too. And plus, they didn't have any kind of customer support on the weekend when I had questions about my whole deal. And then people were like, "Oh, so you want people to work on the weekends?" And I'm like, boo freaking who? I've had plenty of jobs where I've had to work on the weekends. It doesn't mean you're working a 7-day week. It just means that you're covering hours on the weekend. And
Land's
I know tons
End
of companies
seems to be able to deal with it.
Zappos can give you free shipping and free returns and not charge you a restocking fee. And they do hundreds of thousands of orders a week,
On the flip side, there's a huge tradition in consumer electronics and especially computer stuff where it's like, oh, I've got a project and I buy a printer and I use it for 2 weeks and I print out 1,000 things and I return it.
That's actually one of the reasons why CompUSA got into trouble after a while. It's why Costco has a 30-day return policy on flat panels, because people would basically, instead of the 1 year, they would buy them and they would sit on them for like 10 months, and then because they had like a 1-year return policy, then they would return it and get the next model because everything had upgraded by then.
Brilliant.
Well, it's a loop. It's an analog loophole that's been closed by Costco. But no, it's something you think about. Is there a restocking fee? Is there a return fee? Do you have to pay for shipping?
I don't know. I guess I just didn't understand the restocking fee thing. Maybe I didn't read the terms well enough.
The restocking fees, you want to see brutal restocking fees? Take an iPhone back or an iPod back to the Apple store in San Francisco.
Pretty bad, huh?
It's like a huge restocking fee.
But anyway, there's some trusted experts online for looking at in-ear headphones, like headfi.org. Headroom, pretty honest in there.
Yeah, the folks at Headroom, they sell headphone amps as headphones. They savage headphones they don't like in their online catalogs. You can talk to us about our favorites.
Because we know these things too.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Etymotics.
I like Ultimate Ears and Shores.
There's 2 for you to try. There's so many out there.
At all different price ranges too. I mean, if you want to go real cheapy, like the V-Motos are pretty decent.
Koss has some.
Those are pretty comfortable.
Like $20 in-ear headphones.
And they're cute too. The V-Motos are really cute.
The Kosses are not cute,
adorable.
but they sound good.
Anyhow, we want to take some time now to thank one of the sponsors of today's show, Beck's, the #1 German export beer.
It's time now to thank one of the sponsors of today's show, Beck's, different by choice. Do you get a relationship issue or a career dilemma? Who needs professional advice when you get the insightful perspective of loyal Beck's drinkers like myself? At becksbeer.com, you find a universe of choice, a live polling engine that lets you submit any issues or life dilemma to the community of Beck's drinkers for real-time voting. So log on to becksbeer.com for full details, and you leave a more enlightened person.
Welcome to this week's Freebie Download Pick, a free program that we find useful, fun, or incredibly interesting. This week's pick, Wind Bubble. If there's one thing we miss in Vista, it's the incredibly fun and useful Power Toys tweaking tools Microsoft released for Windows 98, 2000, and XP. Thankfully, there's Wind Bubble. It's quite possibly the last Vista tweak tool you'll ever need. The design is straightforward and self-explanatory. Each type of tweak is grouped under its own tab. For example, the General tab covers all of the general tweaks for Vista, like right-click options in Windows Explorer, owner information, and desktop customizations. The Icons tab lets you change the set icons in Vista with ones a little more to your liking. And there's a Security tab if you want total control over who can see what when inside of Vista. Optimize lets you increase performance for gaming or just overall system speed for your everyday applications. And our favorite, the Specific tab, which lets you quite literally tweak all those things you thought were only accessible by those imbued with high levels of Vista hacking mojo, like startup screen and hacking the Windows Experience Index score. I like that. Honestly, there's just too much to list here, so if you fancy yourself a Vista power user or you just want people to think you're one, then check out Wind Bubble. It's not going to cost you a thing.
Up next, Monty is in hard drive heck.
He writes in, I have a Dell 4700 with 2 serial ATA hard drives and only 1 IDE slot, with a hard drive on the same cable as his DVD burner. He says he started getting an error upon startup. The computer couldn't find the master or slave. If he selects F1 to continue, he can find both the hard drive and the DVD in my computer and can access and read and write to them both, although it seems a little slow. Now he's got 2 spanking new drives and a possible motherboard issue. What should Monty do?
Well, sweet Nelly. That's quite a little situation.
It's a little funky.
Yeah, since everything was spiffy before this started happening, I say the battery on your motherboard is dead. Sorry. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, so every time you restart the machine, the config info is missing and your BIOS can't find your hard drives. You hit F1, then that lets you reconfigure everything, which works fine until
you reboot and all of the info is lost again and you can't find anything, so you restart again and you hit F1 and everything's fine until you restart again.
Yes, lather, rinse, repeat.
It's a vicious cycle.
So what you need to do is crack open that box, look for the coin battery on the motherboard. Dell's online manual has all the info you need, and then trot down to the local drugstore or hardware store and buy a new replacement battery. Pop that sucker in, hit F1 like last time, and it should be okay.
Forever and ever.
Forever and ever until you need to do it again.
Yeah. That said, if you'd rather replace your motherboard, you mentioned in your email that you could use a few more PCI slots and a quad-core processor if this motherboard was dead. Honey, it's dead. I need a new motherboard. Don't let her watch this episode. You'll probably need to budget a bigger power supply and faster memory in there too. Memory is cheap. I'd suggest you check out extremetech.com and hardocp.com for motherboard reviews. Though I can hear Roger Chang coughing in my ear, which loosely translated means buy an Intel motherboard if you don't plan on overclocking because they're so darn stable and they're cheap and they're wonderful. Roger is a big fan of the Intel.
It's handy to have him sitting there in your ear at all times. Tiny little Roger, he just sits in there.
Roger
yells really
knows
loudly.
all
He's got like one of those
and
big
sees all.
bull horns. He's like,
Oh.
hey you guys!
Speaking of which, if you have an AGP graphics card, Monty, you're going to be upgrading that to a PCI Express card because buying a new quad core with an AGP slot on the motherboard or buying a new motherboard for a quad core processor with an AGP slot on the motherboard is just no bueno. Don't do it.
Yeah, I wonder though if you're running out of space in that case. You already have both drive slots and both optical slots full. I'm assuming you have one of your 3 hard drives in the second 5¼ bay.
Yeah, right up there near the DVD drive.
Yeah, and the case only has slots for 4 PCI cards. So if you want more PCI slots, you're going to need a new case.
Well, that was expensive.
Sorry.
And at
about
this
that.
point, it's like depending on, it's at this point that you need to price out whether or not buying an entire new PC and then moving your hard drives into it will be cheaper than building all those parts and putting it together.
Well, maybe the
yourself.
battery will help.
The battery could help a lot.
We'll hope for that.
Video email?
I think video email.
Take it away, Sean.
Hey Patrick and Veronica, I was wondering if having a high mouse DPI, let's say 2000, will have a drastic increase on gaming performance over, let's say, a standard 800 DPI mouse.
So Sean wants to know how mouse DPI affects gaming. We've talked about it a few different times in the show, so it's probably time that we give him a little bit of a definition.
DPI, or dots per inch, is a common metric manufacturers and reviewers use to refer to mouse sensitivity. It replaced the term CPI, or counts per inch, which a lot of folks actually consider more precise, or at least in terms of a way to describe what's being measured. Basically, it's the number of times a mouse counts when it's moved within an inch. The more counts, the higher the dots per inch. It's really useful in first-person shooter games where precision is required. Like when you're in a team deathmatch, you're using something like a railgun, which is super powerful, but if you don't hit things spot on, it doesn't work very well, or a real-time strategy game where you need to pick out single tiny units on your super high resolution screen. The greater sensitivity is also a plus in high frame rate shooters where your mouse movements need to track as quickly as the frame rate. Ask our local World of Warcraft fanatic here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm sure you don't.
This leans to another metric you need to be aware of, the polling rate of the mouse. The poll rate is how fast the PC checks the mouse for movement updates. The effect is how smooth or fluid mouse response will be. Use a low polling rate on the fast frame rate game and all your movements on screen will seem jerky and choppy.
And then you get shot. And then you get shot.
Exactly. Typically though, a USB mouse is polled 125 times a second, but software hacks can allow up to 500 hertz and even 1,000 hertz polling.
Many of your pro gamers and even LAN party veterans use tricked out gaming mice and higher polling rates to gain that extra edge over their opponents. And if you cruise the PC gaming forums for USB acceleration or polling speeds, you'll find registry hacks for Vista and XP that'll increase over your top. Basically give you smooth, basically hack your speed up. But keep in mind, some mice will not actually accept a higher polling speed, which will render you mouseless, or at least use mouseless.
Don't run them ragged. Their little legs will get tired. Oh,
mouse
not
humor.
funny. Anyhow, 2 more metrics to keep in mind. One is IPS, or inches per second. It's how fast you can move a mouse and still have it tracking. The other is acceleration, how quickly the mouse speed changes over a given distance. That sounds like a lot of math.
Yeah, well, it's important for gamers who like having slower mouse movements produce little movements on screen, and faster mouse movements produce larger movements on the screen. All in all, it can be really important if you're serious about gaming and you put your time in, like tweaking all these settings and getting used to them. But even the stock mice that come with most new PCs can do a pretty good job of playing games. It's just a question of how much of a performance enthusiast you are.
Speaking of gaming peripherals, I got a nice surprise when I came into the office today.
Oh.
Apparently a viewer out there heard me complaining about having to use my my Mac keyboard on my gaming PC. And so he sent me a Z-board.
Aww.
Dixon, thank you very much, Dixon, for sending me. He said if I don't want it, he was just going to get rid of it anyway, so I should recycle it. But I'm going to use it, so I really appreciate it. You guys don't need to send us stuff. We're not asking for stuff, but that was very thoughtful of you.
It's not until Christmas.
At least not until Christmas. Now, if you want to get your 15 seconds of internet fame, send us a video. All you need to do is record yourself in front of a video camera asking a question, no longer than 15 seconds preferably. Then upload them to YouTube and email us a link with a video question in the subject line. No attachments.
No attachments.
None of them.
No capes.
What?
Nothing, it's a Pixar reference. It's time now to thank one of our sponsors. These are the people that help us bring you the show each and every week. It's Domain.com. Did you know that the Domain.com $500 Apple gift card giveaway is still going on? Register new domains or transfer your existing domains and you'll be automatically entered into Domain.com's bi-weekly drawing. Domain.com already offers affordable prices for domains and hosting, but because Domain.com loves you, if you use the coupon code TECH1, that's TEK1, you'll save 25% on domain registrations, domain transfers, web hosting, and more. This coupon is exclusive to Techzilla fans only, so get on over to Domain.com for your chance to win a $500 Apple gift card today while you're saving 25%. See the rules and enter the giveaway at Domain.com/Techzilla. Got a great idea? It all starts with a great domain, Domain.com.
Looks like it's time for another websites we just can't get enough of, a website that we just can't stay away from because it's too useful, too funny, or just too darn irresistible. This week's pick, Fantastic Contraption. As geeks, we have a tendency to enjoy building things, whether it's gadgets or code or mashups. It's part of our DNA to want to make something work. That's why Fantastic Contraption is the greatest time waster / brain teaser I found in a long time. In this seemingly simple flash game, you have one objective: get the pink ball into the goal. To do that, you must construct a vehicle of sorts, a delivery method. You only have a few tools at your disposal, like a few different wheel variants and a couple of rods to hold everything together. Each item has various properties that can help you in your task. As you progress, the levels get more and more difficult with new tasks to overcome. It's like a cross between a video game and a mental exercise, and you'll find yourself spending a lot of time working out the solutions. You can even test out some user-created levels, which have a tendency to be even more diabolical. Plus, you can save your contraptions online to come back to later. The game is free, but you can donate $10 to unlock even more levels and help support the creators. So if you've got a lunch break to kill or some procrastinating to do, check out Fantastic Contraption. Well, Well, we've got ourselves one of them fancy photo editing questions. This one's from Anthony, who writes, I'm into editing pictures. I use Photoshop and Lightroom 1.3. My Windows XP PC is pretty powerful, 3 gigabytes of DDR2 RAM, 3 gigahertz Athlon 64X2 6000 plus processor. I decided to try out Lightroom 2 and my computer jumped up to 100% CPU and hardly draws the picture when I move it or edit it, but oddly enough, barely takes any RAM. What would you suggest I do,
Oh
Tony?
boy. New applications suck. Right? You know when you move to an application you've been using for years,
Yeah.
there's a new version, and you're like, what's going wrong?
Why did you change the thing that was working and make it not worky?
Especially when like they've just hit the street and there's lots of new and exciting issues that are showing up. This is a great time to start checking the forums for your products, or for the basically if the vendor has forums for the products for in their support area, or if there's some particular area where all of the people who use your software gather. I'm kind of wondering if you're using an NVIDIA GPU and if you have the latest graphics drivers. Some folks in the lightroomforums.net community found that they could solve sitting around and waiting problems by changing the multi-display mixed GPU acceleration settings in the NVIDIA control panel to single display performance mode. Even if they had multiple displays, Lightroom went from unusable to speedy. And rumor has it, it can actually help out if you're running an ATI graphics card too.
Yeah, your CPU should run it just fine. Check out the CPU charts for Photoshop CS3 from Tom's Hardware. The 64X2 6000 Plus is hanging tough on the Photoshop CS3 benchmarks.
Yeah, I actually love, one thing I love about Tom's Hardware is they do these insane CPU charts.
Don't they have that sexy video show too? Or the sexy Tom's Hardware chick? Do they still have that?
I have no idea.
I don't, forget it.
Well,
I just remembered, like that's the only thing I remember about them off the top of my head is that they had like a sexy Tom's Hardware chick.
Good to know.
I don't know why I would remember that.
When you're back from searching for the sexy Tom's Hardware chick and you're watching Texilla again, you can Google for Lightroom 2 performance tweaks, and there's a ton of them because you're not the only person dealing with 100% CPU issues. Folks suggest making sure you have as much hard drive space as possible, boosting the camera raw cache, and tweaking your catalog settings, especially tweaking your catalog settings. Lightroom 2 and big honking photo libraries can be tough on a CPU, and I almost wonder if maybe you're sitting there waiting for something to happen because Lightroom is still trying to load your giant set of files off of your hard drive. So, we'll put links to tweaks for this, spend some time in the forums, good luck. It should not be your hardware unless it's one of those weird graphics card issues. And if you haven't updated your graphics card drivers, do it now because certainly on the NVIDIA side, that's fixed a bunch of the performance issues. Which is weird, like a graphics card driver making a photo editing application run slow.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but it's annoying.
It is annoying, but so are computers.
We got a question from Scott. It's one of the bicyclists that wrote in. Do you want to read this one?
Oh, yes. He says, I know you just did a GPS roundup, but I'm planning a 300-mile multi-day bike trip. I'm looking for a small, lightweight, bike-mountable GPS into which I can upload planned routes in KML format. I have no real need for any fancy features and would like to spend under $300. Thanks for the help, Scott in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Woo! Well, let's break this into 2 bits. Your KML route planning, which means you're a fan of Google Earth, which is awesome, and the whole bicycle GPS question. So,
Did you just throw a Google Earth gang sign?
no, I don't even know what that would be. Anyhow, so what's KML? It's also Keyhole Markup Language. It's one of the 4 zillion different ways of expressing geographic info. It's an XML-based language schema developed to work with Google Earth, back when Google Earth was the Keyhole Earth viewer. It's used with Flickr, Google Maps, Live Search Maps, ArcGIS, but GPS hardware, not so much. I'd skip looking for a GPS device that works with KML and download the most amazing and free GPS Babel.
I love this program.
Yeah?
It rocks.
It rock soars his sock soars. It's at gpsbabel.org. And you want to tell them about it since you love it so much?
Can I? So basically, it runs on just about any operating system, and it can translate that KML info into a set of waypoints for a route, depending on what kind of device you're using. For a matter of fact, it's basically the universal Swiss Army knife of GPS data. You should be fine to set up a Garmin route or a TomTom itinerary, or to translate your captured GPS into info, your waypoints into Google Maps, or just about from anything to anything. It's just amazing, actually. Sorry,
No, that's good. I mean, it's good to have first-hand accounts of how awesome things are.
Well, it's one amongst the many things I've used it for is to translate waypoint data for desert race courses into Google Earth, so we can try to get
you're
an idea
always
of what
up
the
to that
terrain
kind
is
of
like.
stuff. Yeah.
It's really, really, it's a cool program if you play around with GPS data. 2 ways to go with bike GPS. I think about the TomTom or Garmin, the sub $200 GPS devices we mentioned last week, if price is your main consideration. Garmin makes a handlebar clamp for their mounts. TomTom has a nice clean interface. Either one might be a bit difficult to hear if you're a heavy breather when you ride. But you'll have big giant arrows on the screen, and if you don't want to buy a mount, I'm sure you can work something out with, say, a hose clamp and a bit of metal, but like the Garmin mounts sell for like 15 or 20 bucks. I'm sure somebody makes a mount that works for TomTom, and they're both basically designed to stick to a flat surface. If you're getting your Cyclista on, we know, not you, Scott, you don't want this fancy stuff, but some of the other folks that wrote, you might want to check out Garmin's Edge series of GPS-enabled cycle computers.
Oh, lordy.
Okay, well, they're cycle computers, for people who are really hardcore about cycling, cycle computers are kind of a big training tool, especially
I understand.
in the whole sort of post... Anyhow, I'll get into that later. The entry-level Edge 205 is a basic GPS that measures and records speed, distance, time, calories burned, and altitude for 250 bucks.
So it's like kind of like a Nike and iPod, but for your bicycle.
It's actually very
It tracks
much like...
all your stuff and tells you which way to go, except it doesn't tell you
The
which
205 not so much. Actually, the 305 though, for about another 100 bucks, the Edge 305 tracks your heart rate, your cadence, and uses a barometer to do climb and descent data.
That's fancy.
Though if memory serves, only the heart rate monitor chest thingy or the speed cadence sensor for your crank are in the box. You're going to have to buy the other one if you want both. The top of the line Garmin Edge 705 for about 400, 500 bucks can handle power data from ANT. I guess it's ANT Plus. I've never actually heard anyone talk about these in the real world. I just read about them on forums. So ANT Plus power meters, basically the ones that allow you to track the kilowatts that you're generating, and has a shiny color display. And all of these do, like, point A to point B, route mapping GPS stuff.
So do regular GPS units, do they typically have any kind of headphone jack?
Some do, some don't, not so much.
I'm curious because you wouldn't use it
It's
when you were
unusual,
driving
right.
because you're obviously in the car and you shouldn't have headphones on. But for a biking kind of situation, I guess it's not that safe either, come to think of it. You're
I
not
actually
really
think it's
supposed to wear your
less
headphones.
safe.
Less
Yeah.
safe, yeah.
I don't.
Scratch that.
Yeah.
I never said it.
Some of them actually do because they have MP3 players built in. So if you
Yeah.
want to run it to your
I guess so
car
if you're
stereo.
carrying it around with you, do a
Yeah.
line out kind of thing.
But yeah, and a lot of folks actually think you're better off with a standalone GPS if you're more into navigating than into the whole cycling computer thing. So.
Yeah, and if you really want to get your geek on, this doesn't really have that much to do with GPS, but my friend Eddie Codell, he's a friend of Revision 3. He's worked with us in the past. He got one of 20 Y bikes, which are these Yahoo commissioned bikes.
These are crazy.
Yeah. And they've got all sorts of gear on them. They actually have a Nokia N95 attached to it that takes pictures every few minutes and then automatically uploads them to a Flickr account. And it does geotagging and all sorts of other fancy stuff.
I
It's
can't believe
really cool.
nobody's pried the cell phone off the bike yet while it was parked somewhere.
True, but if they did that, you would probably know who took it, because you would upload pictures of that person to their YouTube group. I mean, not YouTube, to their Flickr page.
That's a really funny thought.
It's really cool, though. I mean, there's only 20 of them made. I'm not really sure there's a whole project associated with it. We'll put the links in the show notes so you guys can check that out and follow his travels.
And now, a message from one of our sponsors. Greetings from the United States Air Force.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel John Wagner, United States Air Force. I'm the commander of the 45th Launch Support Squadron. I've always wanted to be a part of the space program, and the Air Force is an exciting place to do just that. Most people don't realize the Air Force space program is equivalent to NASA in size and scope, and in most cases larger. The shuttle launches about once a month, and I've got 3 launches here in the next 30 days. So if you want to be in the space program, the Air Force is a great way to do it.
All right, Veronica, you ready for some more tough tech questions?
I am indeed, and maybe even some not so tough ones.
How about this next one?
Flavors of personal choice. Chris writes, "Hey Patrick and Veronica, I think it'd be great if you could do a segment on your favorite iPhone apps. With the thousands of apps in the App Store, I'm sure there's some cool apps you use that people may not know about. Chris from Brantford, Connecticut. Another nutmegger. Chris.
Nutmeg?
Nutmegger. Nutmeg state. Nutmeg.
Okay, I thought you meant like nutmeg.
Connecticut.
Okay.
That's where I'm from.
The nutmeg steak?
Nutmeg steak?
State.
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 That's right.
Connecticut.
Connecticut. That's
Yeah.
where you're from.
You know
That's
about
where
the
I'm
best thing
from.
about Connecticut?
We said that. Anyhow, there are literally hundreds of new apps that come out every week, so it can be a pain to sort through them all. I haven't added too many new ones lately, actually, but there are some that I use pretty darn regularly. PhoneFlix is one. This one's phenomenal. It totally, like, you can see your entire Netflix queue. You can add movies, you can take them away, you can put things up a notch if you
Cool.
want something to come faster. You can search through all their titles. Totally free app, not affiliated with Netflix, but it works great. And then another one is To Do, and that's like a kind of getting things done GDT manager that you can sync with different apps online, like Remember the Milk, which is a personal favorite of mine.
Awesome.
That one's really awesome. But unfortunately, the one problem with To Do, and I don't think it's on To Do side, I think it's on Remember the Milk side,
Right.
is that you need to have a pro RTM account in order to use the iPhone app. So that you have to pay $24 for. It's kind of like Flickr.
Oh, noes.
But then you're a pro.
Paying for software that makes your life easier and more
It's
elegant?
really good though. That's the thing. Like, I paid for the pro account and I'm really happy I did, because having the iPhone app has made me so much more on top of my tasks that I need to get done.
We can vouch for that here at Revision 3.
Yeah, I'm like, go to Texilla today. And then it's like, boop, boop. I'm like, oh crap. Anyhow, no, that's a really good one. I enjoy that one very much. You can prioritize things and you can sync with your web app, and it's a really good way to stay on your GDT game if you use that system. Urban Spoon is another one. If you're looking for a good place to eat, use Urban Spoon to learn all about the different places in your area. You put like what kind of food you want in one column, followed by what neighborhood you're in, followed by how much you're willing to spend, and then you shake it.
Another use for the iPhone
You shake it up.
accelerometer.
And then it picks you a thing.
You're
and
kidding me.
No, it picks you a restaurant, and then
Oh,
you're
that's
like,
a
oh, okay. And then you can read reviews all about them. It's kind of like Yelp. It's like a different online community, kind of similar to Yelp. People write reviews and share them with their friends.
Are these all free applications?
What's the
Well, you had to
first
get the
one?
pro account
Free. You
for
had to
the-
get the pro account for To Do. Urban Spoon is free. The next one is not free, and that's
Dun, dun,
Wordle.
dun.
It's
Wordle?
a game. It's the best game ever. I love it.
Wordle.
It's such a nerdy game.
Sounds
it's
like an obscure character in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I think it's only $4.99 or maybe $1.99. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But it's a game, and it looks like a Scrabble board, kind of, but it's with all the pieces filled in. And then you have to make words by dragging your finger over the letters and writing words out with the letters you're given. And then when you can't find any more combinations, you shake it. And it mixes all the words up. It mixes all the words up again, so you
Come
can
on, show us how you shake it again.
you shake it. That's how I do it.
It's so disco.
Or you just shake it, whatever, it works.
You've been
and then you
spending a lot
have
of
whole
time
new.
commuting, haven't you?
Yes.
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 Anyhow, what are some of your favorites?
I've downloaded a lot of applications that sucked, and I won't
Oh.
mention them.
Well,
But I really like, my favorite so far is Apple's remote program, which lets me use my iPhone as an
Yeah,
Apple
that's a
TV
good one.
remote, because my baby keeps hiding the original Apple TV
you're
remote.
just gonna get rid of the baby, because I mean, he's ruining all your gadgets.
No, no,
I mean,
no.
you have to prioritize these things, Pat.
No, I need to actually just put them out of his reach.
You have
It's
to
a
be
much
like,
more effective
baby,
program.
electronics. They obviously don't mix.
I'm not
So
even
you
going
got
here.
you got to pick one. You got to pick one.
Actually, wait till I show you the picture of him with the DVDs. Tide Graph, it's my favorite Tide program so far. It's got a nice visual graph. Local settings are easy to configure, which makes it a lot faster to use than Tide app.
Why do you need that?
Sailing and surfing. Which ley line you pick
Athletics.
when you're sailing is dramatically impacted by which way the tide is flowing in San Francisco Bay. And yes, I'm waiting eagerly to try out Bunsen Tech's Dynolicious versus InMotion's Pocket Dyno Plus, because hey, I want to benchmark my truck and its performance. Though I don't think either one of those actually measure torque. I think they just do horsepower and then give you like a 0 to 60 time and stuff like that.
So it's kinda
use
like
for the
shaking it.
accelerometer. Yeah, I'm going to shake it with my truck.
Shake it like a Polaroid picture.
Which reminds me of a good question for you. How do I get rid of all of the applications I've tried that suck and I want off of my iPhone?
Well, first of all, if you don't want to see them on your phone when you're on the go, you just hold down on the application until it's the same way that you would move them around earlier. And then it has a little X, and you just hit the X.
And
It's
it goes
gone.
away.
Yeah, so you just push down on the app until all the icons start wiggling, and then you hit the X. And then it may, if you have your iPhone set to syncing with iTunes automatically, it may recopy the application back onto your iPhone. So you have to make sure that at the desktop level you delete the application from there as well. Otherwise, you're just going to keep saving it back over and over and over. So you see, you got it? Did you get it?
Delete.
See, they're doing the wiggle.
I'm so happy.
And then you hit that,
And that goes back
twice,
to normal.
or once.
Outstanding.
Don't delete all of them,
I'm not deleting all of them.
though. Give them a chance.
Do we have time for one more viewer question?
One more viewer question. I think that sounds like an excellent idea.
Souk in New
Souk.
Jersey.
What exit? Sorry, that's so insulting. That's like the
No.
only thing that I think about when I hear people are from New Jersey. I'm like, what exit? Is that really insulting?
I actually had somebody.
New Jersey is more than exits.
Yes, but as New Jersey is, it's just the way we speak. It's okay.
Okay.
As an official, former resident of New Jersey, I am completely comfortable with what you refer to. Exit 63, by the way.
Souk writes, hey Patrick and Veronica, I bought a Samsung DLP TV a year ago. The bulb lasts for 2,000 hours and my TV is at 1,800 hours. Do you recommend buying the bulb from eBay for the best price? Also, does lower brightness help increase the bulb life? And is it better to leave the TV on instead of turning it off for 15 to 30 minutes and turning it back on again? So if you're towards the end of the lifespan of your DLP bulb or lamp, and 2,000 hours is pretty typical across the board, you're probably noticing that the screen might be a little bit on the dim side. And if that's annoying you, or if you just want to have the bulb on hand for when the darn thing dies completely, I would just figure out what kind of bulb your particular Samsung DLP uses. So I actually found a great site, SamsungParts.com, not Parks. Well, that'd be very nice too if you want to get outside. And go to the lamps button on the side there in the navigation. Then you can use the drop-down menu to select your model number. Most replacement bulbs go for around $200, and that's also pretty typical. So if you can find one online for cheaper, go for it. However, just make sure it's a retailer you trust, because if the lamp breaks in the mail, they might not be keen on replacing it.
And I'd actually probably search around. This is another place. Spend some time in the forums. Spend some time looking at it, because there's just I'm a little down on eBay right now, and I'm really down on bad replacement parts being sold by third-party vendors. So shop really carefully and see whether or not other people have had luck, because it would suck to buy like a $200 or $300 bulb and have it just be not the right model, or not, worse yet, maybe it's the wrong color temperature, so everything, all of a sudden your screen looks really weird. For the second part of your question, we hit up our pal Robert Heron over at DL.TV. He says about lowering the brightness to save the bulb. No! The brightness control of most HD TVs, including DLP-based rear projection televisions, is actually a black level setup that has no influence on the intensity of the lamp module's output. Basically, you're adjusting the colors more so than the brightness. Contrast or picture is often the setting used to adjust the picture's overall brightness, but it too has no influence on the lamp output. Most rear projection TVs have an energy saver setting that can reduce lamp output, possibly extending the life of the lamp. LCDs and plasmas, a totally different story. Now, as is for turning it on and off, he says leave it on. If nobody's watching the TV for an hour or more, yeah, turn it off. However, especially with lamp-driven TVs, it can take up to 30 minutes for the picture to completely stabilize, and there's the added wear and tear of heating and cooling the lamp module and its related electronics, because they heat up, they expand, they cool off, they shrink down. It happens over and over again. As with most electronic devices, HDTVs are happiest when fed clean power and they aren't fiddled with too much or too often. So I hope this helped clean up some of your DLP mysteries.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all we got today.
That's it?
That's it.
No more?
That went pretty fast, didn't it?
Aww.
Sorry, guys.
For all you watching, we live on your questions. So email us, techzilla@revision3.com. Tech help, product reviews, how-tos. You ask us, we'll do it, but we need your emails. So don't be shy. Send them into techzilla@revision3.com.
Oh yes, and even better, send us a video question. Think of all the fun you can have and the admiration of all your friends and family when they see your shiny happy mug on our show. Just keep it around 15 seconds, upload to YouTube, and send us the link in an email with video question as the subject line. And as always, you can visit our forums at revision3.com/forum. Find more details on the site.
Now, we got some exciting news for you. Revision 3 has a new farm league of shows up at revision3beta.com, and we want you to go check them out to help us decide which ones should be called up to the major leagues on the main Revision 3 site. We got shows on life hacking, technology, future sex, investing, music, and quite a bit more. So go check out revision3beta.com to get a glimpse of the future of internet television.
That's awesome.
It's exciting.
That is exciting.
Are you excited?
I am excited.
She's excited.
Are
I'm
you
excited.
excited?
Are you excited?
Are you excited?
Go to revision3beta.com. We want to thank you so much for watching.
Until next time, you've been watching Techzilla.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Have a great, great weekend.
Actually, I can no problem do it to this one.
It's following me.
Welcome to TechZilla. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica. What? Where am I? Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Bum, 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 ba-da-da, bum, 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 ba-da-da, bum, 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 ba-da-da.
Moving on up. Moving on up.
To the sky.
And do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Bet you wish you were me. Watch as Veronica Belmont meets her new personal trainer tonight on Revision 3's latest show, Veronica Belmont Gets a New Trainer.
Watch as Veronica gets a new trainer on tonight's episode of Veronica Gets a New Trainer.
What's up next week? A new trainer.